Tonight I'd like to share just a brief message from Psalm 71, if you'd like to take a moment to find that. I'm going to begin with this phrase. It's familiar with many. It's from a very famous novel. The beginning of the novel starts like this. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the season of light, the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. This phrase has great literary value. It's popular. It sets the tone for the novel that Dickens was writing. But it also explains two extremely different environments. And I think that it shares with this psalm the fact that we live our lives with good and bad, happiness and sadness. We also live our lives with where things go smooth and where we encounter struggles. When we think about trials in a believer's life, this psalm should give us comfort. It's a psalm that's filled with some praise. It's also a psalm that's filled not with complaining, but it indicates a concern, possibly some fretting on behalf of the author. David lifts us up. He takes us through the low points in his life, but then he lifts us up by reminding us that God is always there and had been in his time of difficulty. He shows us both the high road that we should choose to take and the low road that at times we're forced to travel. In many ways, one writer says, this psalm contains both human defeat and godly victory. I'm going to begin reading with verse 1 of Psalm 71. In you, O Lord, do I take refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me and rescue me. Incline your ear and save me. Be to me a rock of refuge, to which I may continually come. You have given me the command. You have given the command to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress. Rescue me, O my God, from the hand of the wicked, from the grasp of the unjust and cruel man. For you, O Lord, are my hope, my trust, O Lord, from my youth. Upon you I have leaned and learned from my birth. You are he who took me from my mother's womb. My praise is continually of you. I have been as a portent, a sign or a warning to many. But you are my strong refuge. My mouth is filled with your praise and with your glory all the day. Do not cast me off in the time of my old age. Forsake me not when my strength is gone. For my enemies speak concerning me. Those who watch for my life consult together and say, God has forsaken him. Pursue and seize him, for there is none to deliver him. O God, be not far from me. O my God, make haste to help me. May my accusers be put to shame and consumed with scorn and disgrace, that they may be covered who seek my hurt. But I will hope continually and will praise you yet more and more. My mouth will tell of your righteous acts, of your deeds of salvation all the day. For their number is past my knowledge. With the mighty deeds of the Lord God I will come, and I will remind them of your righteousness, yours alone. The verses describe the struggle between difficulty and determination, between persecution and perseverance. The psalmist speaks of fears and faith. The Christian struggles at times in life. Why is that? Our theology in the church today doesn't include adversity. We seldom want to dwell or focus or even teach or preach on the difficulties in life. We worship not the God of our salvation, but the God who will answer our prayers and meet our needs. When Christ receives us, when he receives us, when we come to know him by faith, he doesn't receive us. What he gets is a list of our desires, a list of the demands that we expect. And then there's that so-called prosperity gospel that we hear advocated by many, to the extent that we're made to feel guilty if we are not experiencing the life that they propose. We're told to be positive. We think that a positive outlook will bring about a positive outcome. It's okay to be positive. It's even better to be optimistic. But we must realize that life is not always as we hoped it would be. That we will encounter struggles, trials, opposition, even persecution. We're taught to look on the bright side, but not necessarily the bright side. We are taught to look from God's perspective. So we're told to keep the faith, trust the Lord. I always encourage believers to look through the difficulty and try to discern what God is doing. Sometimes that's the only consolation we have. Sometimes we find in our times of difficulty, it's simply a matter of looking to see what God is doing. But he doesn't owe us an explanation, and he doesn't always reveal himself to us. But I say to you today that he is a God that can be trusted, and that's what I want to speak to you about in just a moment. So I'm going to pull for these verses three matters that might help us to rely upon the Lord when difficulty, even tragedy, occurs. You see, I personally struggle. I've been a believer for a long time. I have great confidence in the Lord, but I look around and I see the circumstances. I see how our culture, our world is spiraling. And in its descent, I begin to question, Lord, what are you doing, and how long are you going to allow this to happen? And what about those who are coming behind me, coming after me? I look at young Christians. I look at those who are immature in their faith and immature in age. And I think, what is their life going to be like? I know to trust God, but will they? So where do we turn? Our choices are we throw in the towel and say, oh, even so come, Lord Jesus. Or we say, Lord, help my unbelief. I'm not ignorant of what's going on. I see the effects, and I do seriously worry about new believers. Those who struggle not so much with doubt and fear, but with uncertainty. And that is the problem. That's what causes our anxiety. It's the uncertainty. We're uncertain about what the future holds. That's my concern for the young, for my children, for my grandchildren, for the young people in our churches, for, as I said, new and young believers. My concern is the uncertainty of what the future holds. And isn't that our biggest struggle? To the husband or wife who loses their spouse comes the questions, how will I ever live without them? To the one who's received a diagnosis, and that diagnosis is a threat to their health, the uncertainty of what lies ahead is their biggest concern. Will I live or will I die? Will the procedure work? Will the risk of the procedure, are they worth it? Is treatment for cancer the right thing to do? Will it cause me to be sick? What about my plans? What about my loved ones? So many questions unanswered, so much uncertainty. It would seem acceptable to have some fears. But the psalmist writes here that we can be faithful because God is faithful. Ultimately, I hold to the faithfulness of God. In spite of my weakness and my frailty and my unfaithfulness, God has always proven to be faithful. There are people who will struggle in their daily walk, as I do, concerning matters that are dearest to me. The psalmist is speaking about concerns that he's having. He's dealing with those who are oppressing him. There are these who are cruel and who are wishing him harm, and who may say to themselves, he's been abandoned by his God in his latter years. Let's go and pursue him. Let's go and destroy him, perhaps even kill him. God can be trusted. His ways are right and his ways are good, no matter how they're perceived. That's what makes God righteous, because everything that occurs is in fulfillment of his plan. What he's doing, his acts, they occur because they are in fulfillment of his purpose, of his plan, not only for our lives, but for the world. That's what makes him righteous. They are in accordance to his will. The psalmist expresses faith, and he finds his source of consolation is returning to him as he recounts the things that the Lord has done. First of all, he considers this, his former refuge in God. Think of the times you have turned to the Lord in times of difficulty. Think of the times when it's been the difficulty that's that's been God's way of getting your attention. He says in verse 4, rescue me, O my God, from the hand of the wicked, from the grasp of the unjust and cruel man. For you, O Lord, are my hope, my trust, O Lord, from my youth. Upon you I have learned from before my birth. So he considers that the former times, the previous experience. Secondly, his early training. He says in verse 17 of Psalm 71, O God, from my youth you have taught me, and I still proclaim your wondrous deeds. Thirdly, his lifelong hope is in God. So even to old age and gray hairs, he writes in verse 18, O God, do not forsake me until I proclaim your might to another generation, your power to all those who come. Your righteousness, O God, reaches the highest heaven. You have done great things, O God, who is like you. Listen, he says his hope is based upon who he is, his character, his hope, but also what he has done. He considers his former refuge. He knows what he has been taught even from a child. And then he considers the hope that he has that is in God and in God alone. There's our consolation. I don't have to figure things out. I don't have to work these matters out. I have to trust the Lord. I have to be faithful to him because he has been faithful to me. Finally, he has his memories. His memories, as one writer says, of past mercy. In verse 20 he says, you have made me to see my many troubles. You have made me to see many troubles. I often tell folks who go through a difficulty, perhaps the Lord is preparing you to minister to someone else. I use that line a lot. I talk to someone who goes through a knee surgery, a knee replacement. And not too long afterwards, someone in the church is looking at a decision regarding knee replacement. I say, look, you can minister to that person. Go tell them. It's not a walk in the park, but you don't regret having it. Sometimes the Lord allows us these difficulties so that we might minister to others. He says, you have made me to see many troubles and calamities, but you will revive me again. From the depths of the earth, you will bring me up again. You will increase my greatness and comfort me again. He's looking back at his history. He's remembering what the Lord has done. He's realizing that it will be the Lord's work that will get him out of the difficulty, and he will be exalted. And it will be to God's glory, not his own. So in summary, here's what we have. We face difficulty. The psalmist is writing of it. He says, I have difficulty, but I also have hope. We have the knowledge of knowing that God is sufficient. We have the experience where he has been faithful in the past. We also have the hope that is found in God and in God alone. And finally, as I like to say, we have a God that can be trusted. Oh, we trust our doctors, we trust our friends, we trust those who give us their opinion, their counsel. But my confidence is in the Lord and how he will use what are perceived as difficulties to accomplish the work that he's doing. We recently did a funeral service for a young lady. The only thing I could tell her dad was that God was fulfilling a work. Maybe not in her life, but maybe in the life of those who remain. My prayer is that you would see your obstacles, not as a time of fretting and worrying, but as an opportunity to allow God to include you in what he longs to do in the lives of others.